All right, the stream of consciousness. Huh? We actually have two topics. One topic was the issue of the relationship of Oz to Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the other one was the issue of throwing the tree into the bitter waters. So that was so I'll touch on the latter briefly. The Bnei Zoska says in his Agla de Pirka, he says that the Gemara talks about how the relationship between the Rebbe and his Talmidim should be structured so that there really is the maximal kind of impact. So the Gemara says that there should be a sense of awe. That in order for the words of the teacher, in order for the teaching of the teacher to have their optimal impact, that there needs to be a certain sense of trepidation. The Talmidim need to be able to relate to what's happening as the context of trembling. And they point to the fact that, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, that one is supposed to, when you sit down to learn, even if you're just sitting down to learn all by yourself with a sefer, that the way in which you approach the learning is with a certain sense of fear and trembling. We heard the Aseres HaDibros Mipi HaGvura. That's how it's called. The Windstone spoke to us, and in a certain sense, the energy was Gvura. It was Hashem speaking from a place of judgment, of din, summons to accountability. So it's so the halacha says that the way you're supposed to learn is with beses and zeh, with trembling and kind of like sweating. And that's so if we want to get the most out of our learning, then we have to have a great deal of respect for what we're doing. And we have to have some sense that the Windstone is speaking to us at that moment, and that we're being addressed from a very exalted place, being called to responsibility. We're being summoned before the divine before the divine throne to be instructed. So that's, you can imagine what that would look like if it was actually happening, but that's the way we're supposed to relate to him. And if there's, to the extent, in direct proportion to where we are not, or we don't have that kind of relationship, that's, in that same measure, we're going to be, in a certain sense, less malleable, less permeable to to everything that can come through in that teaching. So they use the Pirka uses this pasuk as a point of reference, and that the water that Klal Yisrael was thirsting for refers to Torah, and that they went for 3 days in the desert without hearing Torah. They went and they came to Marah. So why was it called Marah? They couldn't absorb the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to teach them. Ki morim heim, from the word mora, they decided they were their own. They were their own das Torah. They were their own poskim. It's a little bit like what goes on in the modern Orthodox community. Everybody's their own posek. Everybody's their own das Torah. There's no deference to a das Torah. So he says, they could not receive Torah from the teacher, meaning like in this case from Moshe Rabbeinu, because they were their own morim, they were their own teachers. That's why they called the place Mora. So it's a Chassidish Torah, but it's a Chassidish Torah that has a very important message, which is that if we want to learn, so if we're learning by ourselves, or we are learning from a teacher, that if we really want to get something, then there has to be that kind of awe and reverence for the process. What's going on right now? What's going on right now is that the Rebbeinu is teaching us either from the pages of a sefer, or he's teaching us through some teacher, and that if we want to get the best, we have to recognize that this is an occasion of Mora, and if we are our own teachers, that we're not gonna get it. So that's my comment on the eights. So the eights in this case is the tzaddik, or the Mora. That's what makes the waters sweet. What makes the waters, in a certain sense, ingestible, is the fact that you recognize that there's an eighth. Rashi quotes a Chazal by the Meraglim, Hayesh ba'etz im ayin, that what he told them was, check in if they have great leaders. That's the eights. Hayesh ba'etz im ayin, Pashas Shlach. Hayesh ba'etz. Hayesh ba'etz im yesh b'hem adam kosher sheyogin aleim b'schusay. So over here, Vayireu Hashem eitz. Hashem pointed out the fact that they need necessity to have an eighth, a necessity to have someone to whom you defer, someone to whose authority you're responsible. And when you put that into the equation, then then the waters become sweet. What? It's chaim.
Beacon b'chayim, b'tzikim b'muslim, mikram chayim. Tzadik is chayim. So it's chayim. Chayim is tzadik.
Why they don't do nothing to allow writing to help that. If they would try and get it from the top, from this forum, and not get it from the.
So it distanced us from that era that you're supposed to have. I think, by the way, that the expression in the Gemara about how the teacher is supposed to teach, I think this expression is that he should cast mora, he should cast mora, he should cast a certain, like
Mora, a fear, what?
A fear, a certain, like, what?
Everyone tried to go back to that. Forget about this forum and just listen to them.
Yeah, but it'll be possible. It's not possible.
Sorry?
If that would be possible, it's not possible anymore.
Between Moira
And?
Ema. Al Yakil Adam Ema Yisera. That face.
Rashi in Purim makes a distinction between, he says like this, Parshas Eikev, V'yisartev ish b'fnechem pachdechem u'meira'achem yiten Hashem lekechem al-pnei ha'aretz. No person is, Klal Yisrael go into the land of Canaan. No person will be able to stand before you. The Pachdechem u'meira'achem yitin Hashem lekechem al-pnei ha'aretz. Hashem will cast the pachad and the mura on the face of the entire land. I should do it that you will step on. So Rashi over here says, "V'alei pachad u'meira." Isn't pachad and mura the same thing? So he says, "Pachdechem ala krevim u'merachem ala chaykim." So pachad is a term that's used when people are afraid of something which is in front of them. It's immediate. Meira is when the person is worried about something that's afraid of something that's coming down the pike, but it's not there yet. But I don't remember. If Rashi makes that same distinction between Emo.
Is that the same as
Maschem, huh?
Is Ema the same shorish as Ayom?
Probably. Yeah.
It's like wondrous.
Maybe it's more like terror. More like terror. Because it says like animals. Animals it says, in Bereshit it says, that he'll cause the animals in Maschem.
Where is that?
And
נקרשו המים, והמים עליונים ברקיע, זה אימא?
Let's see. Let's see what Rashi says. There Rashi says, uses the word gairo, that he scolded them. He screamed at them. He just used the word gairo. Noah. It says, "Umeirachem v'chitchem yeh al kol chayes haaretz." It doesn't say in Maskeh. Where does it say in Maskeh? I don't know. Anyway, there's the Malbim has a sefer on synonyms in Lashon Kodesh. It's a great sefer. They reprinted it. Somebody took the original sefer, went through all of the Malbim, collected all of his comments on synonyms, and put it out in a 2-volume set. I use it all the time. It's a great set. I don't remember what the name of it is. But he deals with these. He'll take Ema, Pachad, Yira, and he'll tell you how they're all used.
Norah v'ayom. Is Norah Lashon Moira?
Yeah. But we still don't know what's the difference between Neira and Oyem. Somehow, Oyem seems to me to be bigger, like terror. When there's fear and there's terror, and I suspect that.
Comes up in the beginning paragraphs after in Shmonesher Yom Narun. So we have painting Pachtacha, we have different verbs that are used for different
So there's got to be a reason for that.
There could be their Pirushim on the Machzer that discuss that.
Maybe.
Painting Pachtacha,
There's got to be a distinction. So we have this concept of the fact that within each of us there is something that reaches towards transcendence. There's something that we all it's one of the properties of the Jewish neshama. The Jewish neshama is something that yearns for something which transcends the physical. It wants to connect to the eternal, to the infinite. We all have that. And in a certain sense, the ladder to the eternal, in a very paradoxical way, is through the finite and the limited aspects of life. The way in which we embrace eternity and the way in which we embrace infinity is by doing things that are time-bound and space-bound. So all of our mitzvahs all have times, and they all have measurements, and they all have qualities that are very physical. So we reach for Hashem through making a bracha on what we eat, and we reach for Hashem in dealing honestly when we're doing business, when we reach for Hashem, when we're being machanach our children, we do. It's always something that it's an expression of the Medrash Tanchum says, Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu yesh lo dira v'tachtonu. Rabbi Michel has this yearning to have an abode, a dwelling place in this world. But our ability to access the Ein Sof is specifically through things that are the very opposite of the Ein Sof. It's all through things that are very, very physical. So the word Uz is really the word of Yitzhak. It's really the word of that represents kind of being able to leave, to get beyond, to transcend the physical world. So 7 is always, that represents the binyan of the world. It represents Teva. When Hashem created the physical world in 7 days, that number is a critical number in representing Teva. 8 represents L'mayla min Teva. So, but you can't get L'mayla min Teva. There's no way to get there. You got to pass go and collect $200. There's no other way to get there other than by going through Teva. Though if you want to pass up Teva, you're missing the materials. You don't have the thing. The Rabbi Michel Kav is in the Teva. When I believe it's Rav Bessler says, Ki Amokim, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu by the snare, Shalom Yalecha Me'al Raglecha, Ki Amokim Asher Atoim D'Lovad Mos Kedushu. The Kedusha is where we're standing. It's right kind of in the dirt where we are. That's where the point of departure is. That's where we begin our in terms of the space age. That's where our liftoff is. It's from. Huh? It's from Tartaim. It's all from this. The stuff that Mashiach is going to come on a chamor. And Yetzias Mitzrayim began with a chamor. Moshe Rabbeinu took a chamor, and it's the same chamor that Avraham Avinu did by the Akedah. It's the same. The vehicle is Chumyas.
We say Oz, behind the Zion of the Teva is the Yehuda Shalom, the Aleph, the Yehuda Shalom.
Right. So that's it. That's it. The Aleph, the Oz represents Yitzhak because it's attaching the Alufay Shalom to Teva, and that's that word represents how we can split the sea and how we can exit from Mitzrayim. The exit from Mitzrayim. Our own personal Mitzrayim is all dependent on us, and our success in making our tedious things, our chumrous things, God connected.
Adam is that also.
What?
Adam is that also.
Adam is that also. Right. Right. All of them. Right. So, there's a very a very good insight which Rabbi Yitzchak's namesake has about the KSY. So he says that when they would coronate a king in Israel, that there was an Indian of sounding trumpets, chatzotzres, shofars. So he says the reason for that is because Malchusa da'ara came Malchusa da'rekia, that the earthly kingdom has to be a reflection of the heavenly kingdom. So he says that when did God become a melech? He became a melech when there was a person to recognize his sovereignty. Until there was a person, God was not melech. He was everything, but he wasn't melech. Melech is a relative term. You have to ein melech b'lo yom. There's no king unless the king has a nation. So he says, so when
Chazai Melech Shemo Nidro.
right,
It's called Melech.
melech,
There's Melech, the term called Yitzir Nidro. There's Melech.
right,
Shemalach.
right.
So it's the Kriya that is the Knich.
He's not melech. You can't call him melech until there's someone to call him melech, recognize that he's melech. So he says, so how did that happen? It happened the moment of Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, when God blew a living soul into man, when man became an intelligent living being. That's when God became king. So how did God become king? With the blowing of breath. So he says that's why when we on Rosh Hashanah, when the theme of Rosh Hashanah is Malchus, so the way in which you declare Malchus is by the blowing of breath. Hashem became king by blowing into man, and we declare his sovereignty by blowing into the shofar, which is a kind of a representation of that moment in which God became king. And that's why when you coronate a king in Klal Yisrael, you do it through either trumpets or shofars in order to kind of just God becomes king through you declare his kingship through the shofar, and earthly king becomes king through shofar. That's
What is in between that?
what?
What is the bonus in between Malchus and
So that's a whole other thing. So that's the Quran has to do with the Akedah, and there's other cheshbonos there. It's a very rich symbol. So what corresponds to that is that when Klal Yisrael in moving towards the kind of the Yitzia and kind of moving towards the freedom, like so we would be, like you would move from Mitzrayim. So it said the Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times in the text of the Torah, and that corresponds to Yovel. Yovel is the culmination of our attempt to get beyond the network. So we have 7 times 7. You have 7 Yovelis. Each cycle is 7 years. If you have 7 Shemitos, that means you've done your homework. You've worked through the earth. You've done the necessary things, the necessary discipline. Then you reach a time of Yovel. So then all the avodim go free. All the properties go back to their original owners. You go back to, in a certain sense, to the ideal state where you recover your dignity. You recover your so in a certain sense that's Yovel means shofar. That's what the word Yovel means. It means shofar. And there are 2 phases. There's the first phase of Yovel is Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh Hashanah of the 50th year. the avodim stop working. They stop working, but they don't go back home. They don't go back home until they blow the shofar on Yom Kippur. When they blow the shofar on Yom Kippur, that's when everybody goes back home. Because it's kind of like a two-stage process. That you end up, you're working through the seven cycles of Derech HaTeva. You work through Teva to try to grasp the infinite, and then on Rosh Hashanah, you have the sounding of the shofar, where you declare Ribbono Shel Olam king, and on Yom Kippur, the Ribbono Shel Olam declares us king. And he says, okay, now go take your life back. I'm wiping the slate clean. You've done your homework. Now, on Rosh Hashanah, you were able to stop working. But on Yom Kippur, now you're going to reclaim your dignity on Yom Kippur, because that's
So it's the culmination of what?
the culmination of Rosh Hashanah marks the culmination of your efforts. You worked in the
Yovel
seven.
Rosh Hashanah marks the culmination of.
The Yovel of Rosh Hashanah marks the culmination of. It's kind of like this is you graduated the Teva. 7 times 7. You've done your homework. You're not avodim. The Aseret Yemei Tshuva is the bridge between you're no longer avodim and now you're Yotzei L'Chiros. Now this is the time when you're, in a certain sense, when Hashem says, now you're king. You go back. You take your life back. So the Oz is really the greatest Oz takes place in Yovel. That's when the Aleph and the cycle of 7. You have Sheva Yipel Tzadik become. The tzaddik falls 7 times, and then he rises. And that it also applies to Klal Yisrael. It's, we interface with Teva, and invariably, our interface with Teva is going to cause us from time to time to stumble and have some things, but ultimately, the battle with Teva, the determination that we have, our perseverance in moving through the phases of Teva, ultimately is the calm. That's the ultimate triumph of Yovel, and that's why Yetzias Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times, because Yetzias Mitzrayim, the object of Yetzias Mitzrayim is the Yovel. Right?
We treat the word Oz like just a simple word.
His namesake writes that Ozimo is called Pinu, Asher Adam and other kids called Purim Mazan, but Purim is the Pinu of Oz.
It was? Oh, really?
From minus 49 to
Ozimo is called Pinu.
Yeah.
tomorrow.